Hello. Welcome to Just the Dis. We talk about Blu-rays here. My name's Brian. And today I'm going to talk about some stuff coming out through Kino and Kino's, partner labels. I think all the partners are Scorpion releases. This is stuff that's coming out in June, so it's sort of a spotlight on June titles that I think are interesting or look interesting. A few of these I haven't seen, but they looked cool, so I just wanted to kind of point them out and let people know these are coming out this month. So let's start with this one. Career Opportunities from 1991. This is a longtime favorite of mine. One that I think a lot of video store employees discovered. It's a movie that you find in the comedy section and you go, hey, what is this? And then you go, oh, from John Hughes. That's interesting. And then you find out, no, it's directed by Brian Gordon, who's a very interesting director and who worked on Freaks and Geeks, among other things. And so I like this movie. And, it's not a perfect film. And apparently John Hughes thought it was far from a perfect film. In fact, in the commentary, there's a really nice commentary on this Blu-ray by Chicago Film Critics Film Festival producer Eric Childress, and he mentions that Hughes, tried to get his name taken off of it, but the studio was too hot on John Hughes at the time because he had done Home Alone was the most recent hit he had, and so they really weren't about to surrender using him as a way to sell this movie, which, didn't necessarily work that well. But, he didn't like the film, and I think Childress mentions him actually reshooting some scenes himself, and I'm not fully clear if those scenes were then used in the film or not, and which scenes they were. I don't know. But as I said, this has always been a film that I've enjoyed. It's a story of a slacker, sort of. Jim Dodge, played by the great Frank Whaley, and he is a guy who likes to make up whoppers. He definitely doesn't always tell the truth. That's just sort of his style, but he doesn't mean it in a harmful way. He just sort of has this narrative in his head, I think, that he's really trying to live up to, maybe. I don't know. So he is the guy who's gotten fired from many sort of low wage jobs all around town. He still lives at home with his parents and his older sister, who also lives at home but pays rent, and he doesn't. And anyway, his parents aren't particularly proud of him, but he does get a job at Target, which is featured very prominently in the film. And there's a great scene where he goes in for the job, and John Candy is the guy hiring him. And of course, there's a big mix-up, and it's very silly. But so the other part of the story is that Jennifer Connelly plays the daughter of a prominent local, I can't remember if he's a politician or just a rich guy. I know he's rich. And he is played, I'm going to not remember the guy's name right now, But yeah, she's sort of the daughter of a rich guy and sort of into acting up. And another thing that Eric Childress touches on in the commentary that I guess I had sort of noticed but hadn't paid full attention to, is the sort of implied potential, abuse in her relationship with her dad. He does talk about hitting her and stuff like that. And Eric goes a little deeper on that stuff in the commentary, which is intriguing. But anyway, she ends up at the Target where Jim is working. She tries to steal some underwear but can't go through with it and ends up staying the night. So they hang out for the night, this rich girl and this slacker. And they knew each other in high school, but they didn't, really have a lot of contact. And it's a really interesting meeting. And they sort of hit it off in a way. And I think that's the thing a lot of people respond to, is sort of a nerd wish fulfillment kind of thing. But anyway, it's a fun movie, and the commentary is very enjoyable. Eric Childress also mentions that John Hughes saw a short film that Brian Gordon did. And I'm blanking on the title of the short film, but you can look it up. It's one of his first credits. And that was one of the reasons he got hired to do this movie. And I think Brian Gordon does a good job with the movie. I think it has a fun energy to it. And the other supporting cast includes Dermot Mulroney, William Forsythe. Boy, there's a bunch. There's a bunch of interesting faces in here. But like I said, this is just sort of a 90s gem for me, and one that I was excited to see on Blu-ray. This is a widescreen movie, so it's 2.35:1, and for a lot of us, we saw this movie on VHS for years and years where it was cropped, and so it's always nice to see it fully widescreen. I don't know that this is a brand new scan, but it looked fine. It looked pretty good. But I dug this Blu-ray, and I dug the commentary. The other great thing that Eric Childress does is he goes through the movie and he calls out all the songs in the soundtrack as they happen, which I think is neat because I'd sort of heard these songs over and over again, but I'd never bothered to try and figure out who was performing them and, had them sort of not analyzed, but just sort of talked about a little bit. I think that's a cool thing that other commentators may have done, but I think it's a neat thing to do just periodically throughout the commentary. So a good package overall, and definitely worth a pickup if you're a fan, and if you're looking for silly 90s comedy that actually has a dark edge to it, if you think about it, this is definitely your movie. Next up, another comedy, surprise, surprise, Body Slam. This one from 1986. This is directed by the great late Hal Needham, stuntman and director, and I may be mistaken, but I believe this is his last theatrical feature. I feel like he did some TV movies and maybe some straight-to-video movies after this, but this is his last theatrical feature, and we recently talked on Pure Cinema about final films from directors, and this is one that I actually thought about in terms of a movie to discuss as part of that episode, because I dig this movie. I think it's silly, but it's fun. It has Dirk Benedict at the heart of it, as you can see there, with Tanya Roberts, and it is about wrestling. And basically Dirk Benedict is playing, it feels a little bit like his Face character from the A-Team, just a very charming con artist of a manager. And he represents musical acts, and he is not doing well. Like, his car's getting repossessed, he's overdue on his office rent, and he owes money to his lawyer, and so he's got a lot of problems. But this movie has some wrestlers in it, Roddy Piper being one of the big ones, Captain Lou Albano, and more. There's actually a bunch of wrestlers in it. And he sort of stumbles into an opportunity to represent the Roddy Piper character. He's not playing himself in the movie. He's playing a wrestler by another name, I think. And so he starts representing wrestlers, and that sort of becomes his thing. And then he gets sort of entangled in the world of wrestling. And, it's a fun movie. I think it's one that was streaming on Amazon Prime for a long time, but, it has an MOD DVD release, but didn't really get much home video love. So I feel like this movie, outside of maybe hardcore wrestling fans, hasn't been properly, given its due. I think it's an enjoyable comedy, and Dirk Benedict is just perfect as this sort of con artist. He really tells a lot of tales like Jim Dodge and trying to convince people to sign with him or just to get them off his back or whatever. But it's also got a colorful supporting cast. Barry Gordon is in this, and if I recall, he's the kid from 1,000 Clowns, which is one of my favorite 60s films. He played the young kid in that. He plays the lawyer in this. Also, John Astin shows up for a minute, and I feel like there's a few other small parts like that that are enjoyable. But I think this is fun. It is a brand new HD master from a 2K scan of the Inner Positive, so it looks better than it's looked previously. And there's an interview with Barry Gordon on here as well, so that's very cool. I always love to hear him talk, and they talk to him on the Thousand Clowns Blu-ray as well. He's got a very distinct voice. If you listen, I feel like he did some cartoon voiceover later or something, and so he definitely sounds like he was I don't know, in the Hanna-Barbera school or something. Like, anyway, but fun movie, and I dug it, and I'm glad it's out on Blu-ray. Keep the comedies coming. Here we go. CB4 from 1993. This, of course, a beloved cult comedy, which I know a lot of people have been excited to get on Blu-ray. And it is starring Chris Rock. And he worked on the script as well, I feel like. Screenplay by Chris Rock and Nelson George and Robert Locash. And it is, in the most rudimentary sense, a Spinal Tap type, mockumentary, but set in the world of 90s rap as opposed to rock. And it's very funny, and it has a lot of great, jokes that land. Some of them don't land, but there's some really great stuff in here in terms of like the rise and fall of a rap group. And Chris Rock is very good in the movie, and they sing a song. Basically, these guys sort of have been working on their act, and they end up coming up with an idea, and it's very much, like they have a song that's like Straight Outta Compton, but it's called Straight Outta Locash, and it's a very funny song. It's done to the tune of Straight Outta Compton, re-lyriced, and I gotta say, it's actually one of the better re-lyriced songs I've heard ever, and so I'm a big fan of it. But it's a very enjoyable comedy, and you have other people in it like Chris Elliott, Phil Hartman, and Eddie Murphy's brother, Charlie Murphy, who looks a whole lot like Eddie, but sounds a little bit different, and he's passed away since this film, but he has a pretty prominent role as kind of a villain in this movie. But this is directed by Tamra Davis, who did Billy Madison, and she actually did Half Baked as well, which I'll talk about in a second. And she's a good comedy director, and I enjoy her work in the comedy field. She does not do a commentary, but there is something called Straight Outta Locash with director Tamra Davis and co-writer Nelson George. So she is represented on the disc. And then there's an audio commentary by film historians Alexandra Heller-Nicholas and Josh Nelson, who are quick becoming two of my favorite commentators on Kino Discs. They did a commentary last month on Cool as Ice. They did a commentary on The All-Nighter, and they've done a few more, and they're very enjoyable. They don't take a fully academic approach to commentating on comedies, but they are, serious about it. I mean, it's a fun and lively track, but they are informative and entertaining, and I really dig the two of them together. I enjoy their tracks, so it's good that they're on this as well. Like I said, this is just a much beloved comedy that has finally come to Blu-ray, and I know a lot of people will be excited to get it. And so, yeah, last but not least, Half Baked. I already had this on Blu-ray from Umbrella Entertainment. I think this does the almost exact same, the exact same features as the Umbrella disc, which is, I think, going back to the Blu-ray, a lot of it. Audio commentary by Tamra Davis, 8 outrageous deleted scenes, alternate ending, 5 minutes with the guy on the couch, different types of smokers, Granny's Guide to Bacon, and of course this is the weed movie, for lack of a better description. It says they'll do anything to save their best bud. Comedy legend Dave Chappelle, in an earlier role, stars in this hilarious adventure of 3 lovable potheads, Thurgood Jenkins, Chappelle, Brian, Jim Brewer, and Scarface, Guillermo Diaz, trying to bail their friend Harlan Williams out of jail. But when the guys have mastered a plan, everything comes dangerously close to going up in smoke. Co-written by Chappelle and comedian Neil Brennan. packed with memorable performances by Rachel True, Clarence Williams III. Let's see here. Stephen Wright, that's right. Tommy Chong, Snoop Dogg, Jon Stewart, Willie Nelson, Stephen Baldwin, Tracy Morgan, Janine Garofalo, and Bob Saget. And Bob Saget has a very dark but very funny cameo. Those are all cameos, and they're all great. But this is just a very enjoyable 90s comedy centered around weed, and has become definitely a cult item since its release. And because the Blu-ray has taken so long, I think this is a movie that a lot of people would like to have on Blu-ray as well. So there's that. Let's switch gears here. There's several British films coming out this month, and this is the one I'm going to highlight. This is from director Basil Dearden, who did a lot of great crime films and noirs and dramas, and just a really solid workman director in the UK. And this film is all about, it says, an immensely popular British crime film. The Blue Lamp was scripted by ex-policeman T.E.B. Clarke and directed by the great Basil Dearden. This classic film noir concentrates on the interrelated episodes in the lives of several London policemen. A veteran cop is... Well, I don't want to go into that, actually. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but it does sort of give you a general sense of a day in the life in these cops and some of the, menial stuff that they deal with. And then there's some low-level criminals, one of whom is played by Dirk Bogarde, that cause some problems for the cops that sort of expands out into the third act of the movie, and that becomes the focus of the film. But the beginning is more like, what do these guys deal with on a daily basis? What is their home life like? How do people treat them? How do they feel about each other? And so it's a neat movie from that perspective. And I had never seen it, but I'd heard of it. I'd heard it talked about. I remember back when Hot Fuzz came out, they sort of made a point of mentioning The Blue Lamp as either a film that Edgar Wright watched or that they were referring to as one of the few British cop films, I guess. I guess the idea was that there weren't that many British cop films like this. So I'd heard of it then, and I'd always wanted to see it. And this is a nice transfer, and it has an audio commentary by entertainment journalist and author Brian Reisman, partial audio commentary by writer John Reed and academic Charles Barr, locations featurette with film historian Richard Dacre, and BBC Radio 3, the essay British Cinema of the 40s, The Blue Lamp audio featurette. But yeah, anyway, it also has, let's see here, Jack Warner, Jimmy Hanley, Robert Fleming, some British actors that I recognize, but I couldn't tell you exactly what they've all been in. But Dirk Bogarde being the one that I recognize the most, and he's very young in this movie, and he's good. But yeah, if you're looking for an interesting British crime noir police drama, The Blue Lamp, check it out. Okay. So then we have a bunch from Scorpion releasing. We'll start with Robert Altman's Fool for Love. This was produced by the Cannon Film Group, which I totally forgot. And I think Tarantino might be a fan of this film. It is based on the play, the award-winning play by Sam Shepard, and he adapted it into a screenplay and stars in the film with Kim Basinger and Randy Quaid and Harry Dean Stanton. And that is most of the cast. I feel like there might be a couple other brief moments, but it's a really neat movie because it is based on a play, but they built a motel set, and I want to say near Santa Fe, New Mexico, I think. There's a great featurette on here, which is, I think, just straight ported from the old DVD. It's not even up-resed. It's about 20 minutes with Altman talking about the film and about his filmmaking in general, and how he says something like, I haven't gotten any better artistically, I think is what he was saying. And he was saying something about how he's gotten better technically, but artistically he doesn't feel like he's gotten... Anyway, he has a lot of intriguing things to say about his approach to directing, the way that he directs actors or doesn't direct actors, allows them to come in and bring everything they're going to bring, because they can bring so much more than he could ever direct them to bring, which is a common thing I've heard him say for a long time. You know, he's always sort of said that stuff. You know this character better than I do, speaking to the actors. But it's an interesting play, and I don't really want to go too much into it. It's kind of mysterious. It opens with Sam Shepard finding, he's driving a truck with a trailer on it, and he finds Kim Basinger at this motel, and she's like, I can't believe you found me. And then their relationship is sort of fleshed out through conversation as the film progresses. And it's a movie where I'd rather you discover what their relationship is. Don't even read the back. Don't watch a trailer. It's more interesting to sort of discover it, because I had kind of forgotten when I was watching it. And anyway, it's nice to have more Altman on Blu-ray. As far as I'm concerned, we need all Altman on Blu-ray, and there's still some missing. Come on, O.C. and Stiggs. And The Perfect Couple. And you know, there's a lot. Anyway, this is a solid release from Scorpion via Kino. Then we have one from, I want to say, 1977. This is a TV movie, Night Terror. And it stars Valerie Harper and Richard Romanus, I believe. Yes. Nicholas Pryor, John Quaid, who you see right here. Very memorable character actor whose face you'll never ever forget. And it's kind of about this woman who's pursued on a lonely highway, basically. TV legend Valerie Harper stars in this mesmerizing thriller about a terrorized motorist. Carol Harper learns that her son has been hospitalized and is in serious condition several hundred miles away. Her husband is out of town and cannot be reached. Desperate to be with her son, she's forced to start out alone on the long, barren drive from Phoenix to Denver. Very late at night and almost out of gas in an unfamiliar area, Carol notices a highway patrolman ticketing a speeding motorist. As she approaches them for directions to the nearest gas station, the officer is suddenly shot by the motorist. Carol, in a panic, drives off in terror. You know where this is going. You know what he did, and you know why he's after her. So then it's just sort of like, can she get away? And I like Richard Romanus. I think a lot of people remember Robert Romanus from Fast Times, but Richard Romanus is a great character actor who's in a ton of great movies, and he's a very solid villain in this. But this feels like not quite Twilight Zone, but maybe like, you know, Night Gallery, or I don't know, 70s. It is a TV movie, and it feels like that, just a dark TV movie from that time. But it's neat. I don't think this has ever had a Blu-ray before. It has a new audio commentary by author and film historian Amanda Reyes and podcaster and author Daniel Budnick, who I'm a big fan of both of them. And I haven't had a chance to listen to their track yet, but they do a podcast called Made for TV Mayhem, which is delightful and highly recommended if you haven't checked it out. A deep, deep back catalog of TV movies. They've talked about so many, and Amanda is certainly the resident expert, but Dan is no slouch and knows a heck of a lot about TV movies himself, and so I'm sure that will be a great track. So that alone makes this worth picking up, I think. But yeah, another Scorpion release that looks good. And then lastly, this one I haven't seen, but I know it's a rare one. I don't think it has much of a home video release. I don't even know if it had a DVD release prior to this. And it played at the TCM Film Festival, I want to say in 2016. So I was looking at Letterboxd, and there were several reviews from that time. From Larry Pierce, the acclaimed director of The Sporting Club, The Incident, Goodbye Columbus, Ash Wednesday, The Other Side of the Mountain, and 2 Minute Warning, comes this classic study of interracial marriage in the 1960s. Julie, Barbara Harris, a young Midwestern mother, takes all the right steps to assure a promising environment for her newborn daughter. She relocates, gets a job, and secures a legal divorce when Julie falls in love with Frank, Bernie Hamilton, an African-American man who works at the same factory her ex-husband Joe, Richard Mulligan, works at. Joe takes her to court in hopes of getting custody. Frank is advised to flee to keep his new family together, but instead he confronts the bias system. One Potato, Two Potato, Pierce's feature film directorial debut. I did not realize that. That's great. I didn't know this is his first film. received the 1964 Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay. Orville Hampton and Raphael Hayes. Now watch this critically acclaimed drama that was ahead of its time, fully restored from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. And this has a new interview with director Larry Pierce, which I definitely want to check out, and new audio commentary from film historian and critic Sergio Mims, who is always solid on commentary tracks as well. So definitely curious about this one. Have wanted to see it for a long time. Sounds very timely and very affecting and powerful. So one potato, two potato. Look, comes recommended. So that's it for the Kino recommendations for this month. I'm sure I can squeeze in a few more in maybe some collection updates, but I will definitely have another round for July. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.